There's the player and there's the stage. When reading the Bible, everybody looks at the players. Nobody looks at the stage. I'm going to introduce you to the stage. We're the stage, my people, and we go by 100 different names. I'm Bill Krapek, fresh and honest readings of the Bible outside of the trenches, in the spirit of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. New video every morning. Now there's a Star Trek episode called A Piece of the Action, where they're landing on a planet of a people known as the Iodians. Remember that name, it's going to be important. And it's the 1920s gangsters. They lived like 1920s gangsters. And it turns out that 100 years before, there was another starship, I think called the Horizon, that left behind a book called Chicago Mobs of the 1920s. And they basically treat it as their Bible. This story, this episode of Star Trek, which I recommend you watching because it's charming, this is about us. We are the Iodians, and I believe the Holy Spirit prompted the author to pick that name for us, because as you're going to see, it's very fitting. Now, I call this video, The Children of Proteus Redux, because if you look at my old stuff, going back 11, 12 years, you see I did a video called The Children of Proteus, because it's about us. Now, in the beginning, I was just looking at the archaeology. As I was making these videos, the population DNA started coming in for ancient populations, and it backed up what I was saying. Who are we? Well, for an Italian DNA, we had assumed there would be three pockets of people: Northerners, Romans, who cluster with the Northerners, and Southerners. What did we get? We got a cline from north to south. Tuscany clustered with Northerners. Central Italians were Southern Italians. We're the same people, except they mixed more with Northerners. So what does that mean? And in turn, if you go out to the islands of Greece, if you look at Crete, if you look at Rhodes, if you look at southwest Turkey with Ephesus, if you look at southern Greece with Sparta, with Athens, we're all of those people. Now, if you look at the ancient dialects of Greece, Doric is Sparta and Crete. That's us. Ionian is also us. That's the language of Ephesus. That's the dialect that Homer wrote in. It's mixed with other stuff too, but it's basically Ionian. Ionian, Iotian, I think that's the Holy Spirit. It's reminding you of something. The population of DNA of the Carthaginians came in. They're from Lebanon. We're thinking they're going to be Lebanese. No, it's also us, which confirms. So if you have basically island Greeks, coastal Greeks, that's what you can call us. So if you have island coastal Greeks with a Semitic language and culture, what are you looking at? You're looking at Philistines. So we're the Philistines. And so Abraham goes into the promised land, and who does he find? He finds Philistines. He pulls a stunt with us. But Abraham's own God doesn't let him get away with it. He protects us. His son Isaac signs a covenant with us. So we're the Romans, right? Didn't we burn Jerusalem to the ground after Jesus was murdered? Through Isaac, they had signed a covenant with us, and they broke it. Just as they signed a covenant with God. We're the only people they ever signed a covenant with. We're the lead of a group of people known as the Sea People. When the Israelites go into the Promised Land, we know this from the archaeology, and this is strange, they were still in the Egyptian Empire. We're the leads of the Sea People. We break Egypt. We destroy the Hittite Empire. Well, they were mostly destroying themselves. But we helped. We probably pushed them over the edge. They also had a drought. I talked about that in a previous video. A kingdom of Ugarit. We rolled back the Assyrians because they were on the rise. We pushed them back to Mesopotamia. They don't come back for 400 years. Without that, without the chaos that we introduced, the kingdom of Israel would have been impossible. David and Solomon would have been impossible. Jesus would have been impossible. When David is on the run from King Saul, who does he run to? He runs to us. We protect David. There is no Solomon unless we protected David. Now in chapter 10 of John, Jesus says, I have another flock. I have this flock, but I have another flock. Now the Mormons say that Israelites from the northern kingdom of Israel, after it was destroyed by the Assyrians, migrated to America, and Jesus is talking about them. That is answered in chapter 12. Jesus goes into Jerusalem. Some Greeks come to worship at the temple, and they talk to Andrew, and they say, hey, can you introduce us to Jesus? And Andrew says, hey, the Greeks want to meet you. And Jesus says, my time has come. The two flocks have come together. What does Paul hammer over and over and over again? Greek and Jew, Greek and Jew. We're now the same people. In order to understand the play of the Bible, you have to understand the stage. We're the stage. And the stage became the play. The order that we introduced as the Romans with our empire allowed Christianity to spread and to flourish. Wouldn't have happened without us. Wouldn't have happened. Now, the reason why I do this, in the beginning, my work was basically the archaeology, the DNA started coming in, and then I stopped doing videos on the DNA because it was obvious to me that people in the DNA research community just don't like us. And they were burying the lead. For example, in the beginning, I got plenty of information about Central Italy, and then all of a sudden they stopped talking about Central Italy. Why do you want to stop talking about Central Italy? I also talk about how we're the original Indo-Europeans. I still think we are, but even if we're not, it doesn't matter. In order to understand the Bible's play, you have to understand the stage, because the stage became the play. The Greek is our language that we spoke. The Latin church allowed Christianity to spread all over the world. It held off the Mohammedans. It protected Central Europe from the Mongols. Okay. Now, next video, the goddess hiding in chapter 1 of Genesis. Except, if you look at the Hebrew, she's not actually hiding. Nobody is so blind as one who will not see. Remember, iron sharpens iron. I'll see you tomorrow morning.